Section 3 of The Adventures of Old Man Coyote by Thornton W. Burgess. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 9 Old Man Coyote Meets Reddy Fox. No matter how you feel inside, hold up your head, call up your pride. Stand fast, look brave, then none will guess the fear you feel, but won't confess. Jimmy Skunk learned this when he was a very little fellow. Now he isn't afraid of much of anything, but there was a time when he was. Oh my, yes. There was a time when he first started out to see the world, and before he had found out that all the world is afraid of that little bag of scent he always carries with him, when Jimmy often was as frightened as Peter Rabbit ever is, and you know Peter is very easily frightened. But Jimmy used to think of that little verse, and though sometimes he had to shut his mouth as tightly as he knew how to keep his teeth from chattering with fear, he would hold up his head, stand fast, and look brave. What do you think happened? Why, in a little while, people began to say that Jimmy Skunk wasn't afraid of anything, and so no one tried to bother him. Of course, when he found this out, Jimmy wasn't afraid. But Reddy Fox is different. He dearly loves to tell how brave he is. He brags and boasts. But when he finds himself in a place where he is afraid, he shows it. Yes, Sir, he shows it. Reddy Fox has never learned to stand fast and look brave. When Reddy had first been told that the stranger with the voice which had sounded so terrible in the night was Old Man Coyote from the Great West, and that he had decided to make his home on the Green Meadows, Reddy had said, "Pooh! I'm not afraid of him," and had swelled himself up and strutted back and forth as if he really meant it. But all the time Reddy took care, the very greatest care, to keep out of the way of Old Man Coyote. Of course, some one told Digger the Badger what Reddy had said, and Digger told Old Man Coyote, who just grinned and said nothing. But he noticed how careful Reddy was to keep out of his way, and he made up his mind that he would like to meet Reddy and find out how brave he really was. So one moonlit night he hid behind a big log near one of Reddy's favorite hunting places. Pretty soon Reddy came tiptoeing along, watching for foolish young mice. Just a little while before he had heard the voice of Old Man Coyote way over on the edge of the Old Pasture, so he never once thought of meeting him here. Just as he passed the end of the old log, a deep voice in the Black Shadow said, "Good evening, Brother Fox." Reddy whirled about. His heart seemed to come right up in his throat. It was too late to run, for there was Old Man Coyote right in front of him. Reddy tried to swell himself up just as he so often did before the little people who were afraid of him, but somehow he couldn't. "Good evening, Mr. Coyote," he replied, but his voice sounded very weak. "I hear you've come to make your home on the Green Meadows. I hope we will be the best of friends." "Of course we will," replied Old Man Coyote. "I'm always the best of friends with those who are not afraid of me, and I hear that you are not afraid of anybody." "No, I'm not afraid of anybody," said Reddy. "Everybody is afraid of me." All the time he was speaking he was slowly backing away, and in spite of his bold words, he was shaking with fear. Old Man Coyote saw it and he chuckled to himself.
"I'm not, Brother Fox,"
he suddenly snapped in a deep, horrid-sounding voice.
"I'm not!"
As he said it, all the hair along his back stood on end, and he showed all his great, cruel-looking teeth. Instead of holding his ground as Jimmy Skunk would have done, Reddy leaped backward, tripped over his own tail, fell, and then scrambled to his feet with a frightened yelp, and ran as he had never run before in all his life. and as he ran he heard Old Man Coyote laughing, and all the Green Meadows and the Green Forest heard it. "Ho, ho, ho! Ha, ha, ha! Hee, hee, hee! Ho, hee, hee, ho! Reddy Fox isn't afraid! Ho, ho!" Reddy ground his teeth in rage, but he kept on running. Chapter X. Granny Fox Visits Prickly Porky. I've often heard old Granny say, "He longest lives who runs away." Reddy Fox didn't realize that he was speaking aloud. He was trying to make himself think that he wasn't a coward and that in running away from Old Man Coyote he had done only what every one of the little meadow and forest people would have done in his place. So without knowing it he had spoken aloud.
But he who runs must leave behind his self-respect and peace of mind.
The voice came from right over Reddy's head, but he didn't have to look up to know who was there. It was Sammy Jay, of course. Sammy is always on hand when he isn't wanted, and Reddy knew by the look in his eyes that Sammy knew about the meeting with Old Man Coyote. "What are you waiting around here for?" asked Reddy with a snarl.
"To tell old Granny Fox how brave you are,"
retorted Sammy Jay, his eyes sparkling with mischief.
"and how fast you can run."
"You'd better mind your own affairs and leave mine alone. I shall tell Granny all about it myself anyway," snapped Reddy. Now, when Reddy said that, he didn't tell the truth, for he had no intention of telling old Granny Fox of how he had run from Old Man Coyote, but hardly were the words out of his mouth when old Granny Fox herself stepped out from behind a bush. She had been up in the Old Pasture for a week or two and had just come back, so she knew nothing of the fright which Old Man Coyote had given those who live in the Green Meadows and the Green Forest.
"I'm all ready to listen right now, Reddy,"
said she. Reddy hung his head. He coughed and cleared his throat and tried to think of some way out of it, but it was of no use. There sat Sammy Jay ready to tell if he didn't, and so, mumbling so low that twice Granny told him to speak louder, Reddy told how he had run, and how Old Man Coyote had laughed at him so that all the little people in the Green Forest and on the Green Meadows had heard.
"Of course he laughed," snapped old Granny Fox. "You're a coward, Reddy Fox, just a plain coward. It's all well enough to run away when you know you have to, but to run before there's anything to be afraid of shows you are the biggest kind of a coward. Bah! Get out of my sight."
Reddy slunk away, muttering to himself and glaring angrily at Sammy Jay, who was chuckling with delight to see Reddy looking so uncomfortable. Old Granny Fox made sure that Reddy was out of sight, and then she sat down to think, and there was a worried pucker in her forehead.
"Old Man Coyote is a wolf,"
said she, talking to herself,
"and a wolf on the Green Meadows and in the Green Forest will mean hard hunting for Reddy and me when food is scarce. It is of no use for me to fight him, for he is bigger and stronger than I am. I'll just have to make all the trouble for him that I can, and then perhaps he'll go away. I wonder if he has ever met Prickly Porky the Porcupine. I believe I'll go over and make Prickly Porky a call right now."
And as she trotted through the Green Forest on her way to call on Prickly Porky, her thoughts were very busy indeed. She was planning trouble for Old Man Coyote. Chapter 11. Granny Fox Tells Prickly Porky a Story. A little tale which isn't true, and eager ears to heed it, means trouble starts right there to brew, with tattletales to feed it. No one knows how true this is better than does old Granny Fox, and no one knows better than she how to make trouble for other people by starting little untrue stories. You see, she learned long ago how fast a mean little tale will travel once it has been started. And so when there is some one with whom she is afraid to fight honestly, She uses these little untrue tales instead of claws and teeth, and often they hurt a great deal worse than claws or teeth ever could. Now you would think that by this time all the little meadow and forest people would have found old Granny Fox out, and that they wouldn't believe her stories. But the truth is, most people are very apt to believe unpleasant things about other people without taking the trouble to find out if they are true. And old Granny Fox knows this. Besides, she is smart enough to tell these little trouble-making untrue stories as if she had heard them from some one else, so, of course, some one else gets the blame for starting them. Oh, Granny Fox is smart and sly. Yes, siree. She certainly is smart and sly. It was one of her plans to make trouble that was taking her over to see Prickly Porky the Porcupine. She found him as usual on the top of a poplar tree, filling his stomach with tender young bark. Granny strolled along as if she had just happened to pass that way, and not as if she had come purposely. She pretended to be very much surprised when she looked up and saw Prickly Porky.
"Good morning, Prickly Porky,"
she said in her pleasantest voice.
"How big and fine and strong and brave you are looking this morning."
Prickly Porky stopped eating and looked down at her suspiciously, but just the same he felt pleased. "Huh!" he grunted. Then once more he began to eat. Granny Fox went right on talking.
"I said when I heard that story this morning that I didn't believe a word of it.
"What story?" Prickly Porky broke in.
"Why, haven't you heard it?"
Granny spoke in a tone of great surprise.
"Billy Mink told it to me. He said that this stranger, Old Man Coyote, who has come to the Green Meadows and the Green Forest, has been boasting that he is afraid of nobody, but everybody is afraid of him. When somebody asked him if you were afraid of him, he said that you climbed the highest tree you could find if you but saw his shadow. Of course, I didn't believe it, because I know that you are not afraid of anybody. But other people believe it, and they do say that Old Man Coyote is bragging that the first time he meets you on the ground, he is going to have a porcupine for dinner."
Prickly Porky had started down the tree before Granny finished speaking, and his usually dull eyes actually looked bright. The fact is, they were bright with anger. Prickly Porky looked positively fierce.
"What are you going to do?"
asked Granny Fox, backing away a little.
"Going to give that boaster a chance to try to get his porcupine dinner,"
grunted Prickly Porky. Granny turned aside to grin.
"I don't believe you will find him now," said she, "but I heard that he is planning to get you when you go down to the Laughing Brook for a drink this evening."
"Then I'll wait,"
grunted Prickly Porky. So Granny Fox bade him good by and started on with a wicked chuckle to think how Prickly Porky had believed the story which she had made up. Chapter XII. Granny Fox Tells Another Story. Believe all the good that you may hear, but always doubt the bad. Pass on the word of kindly cheer. Forget the tale that's sad. If every one would do that, what a different world this would be. My, yes indeed. There wouldn't be any place for the Granny Foxes who start untrue stories just to make trouble. But we will have to say this much for old Granny Fox. She seldom does make trouble just for the sake of trouble. No, Sir, old Granny Fox seldom, very seldom makes trouble unless she or Reddy Fox have something to gain by it. She is too smart and wise for that. It was just this way now. You see, she felt down in her heart that Old Man Coyote the Wolf had no right on the Green Meadows and in the Green Forest. He was a stranger from the Great West, and she felt that she and Reddy Fox had the best right there, because they had been born there and always had lived there, and she was afraid, very much afraid, that there wouldn't be room for them and for Old Man Coyote. but she wasn't big or strong enough to fight him and drive him away, and so the only thing she could think of was to make him so much trouble that he would leave. She'd begun by telling an untrue story to Prickly Porky, a story which had made Prickly Porky very angry with Old Man Coyote, although they had never met. Now she was hurrying down to the Smiling Pool on the banks of which Old Man Coyote was in the habit of taking a sun bath, she had been told. Sure enough, when she came in sight of the Smiling Pool, there he lay, sprawled out in the sun and talking to Grandfather Frog, who sat on his big green lily pad well out of reach from the shore. Granny came up on the opposite side of the Smiling Pool from where Old Man Coyote lay.
"How do you do, Mr. Coyote? I have just heard that you have come here to make your home among us, and I am sure we will all give you a hearty welcome."
Granny said this just as if she really meant it, and all the time she was speaking she was smiling. Old Man Coyote watched her out of half-closed eyes, and to himself he thought,
"I don't believe a word of it. Granny Fox is too polite, altogether too polite. I wonder what kind of a trick she is trying to play now."
All the time he was saying this, Old Man Coyote was chuckling inside, but aloud he said, and his voice was just as smooth and soft and pleasant as Granny's,
"I'm very well, thank you, and I am much obliged to you for your hearty welcome. I am sure we shall be the best of friends."
Now all the time he was saying this, Old Man Coyote was chuckling inside, for he knew well enough that they wouldn't be friends, and that Reddy Fox didn't want to be friends. You see, he is quite as sharp as she.
"Yes, indeed, I am sure we shall," replied old Granny Fox. "How big and strong you are, Mr. Coyote! I shouldn't think that you would be afraid of anybody."
Old Man Coyote looked flattered.
"I'm not,"
said he. Granny Fox raised her eyebrows as if very much surprised.
"Is that so?" she exclaimed. "Why, I heard that Prickly Porky the Porcupine is boasting that you are afraid of him, and don't dare put your foot in the Green Forest when he is about."
Old Man Coyote suddenly jumped to his feet, and there was an ugly gleam in his yellow eyes. Granny Fox was glad that she was on the other side of the Smiling Pool.
"I don't know who this Prickly Porky is," said he, "but if you'll be so kind as to tell me where I can find him, I think I will make him a call at once." "Probably he's taking a nap in a tree top just now," replied Granny. "But if you really want to meet him, you'll find him getting a drink at the Laughing Brook in the Green Forest late this afternoon. I do hope that you will be careful, Mr. Coyote."
"Careful! Careful!" snorted he. "There won't be any Prickly Porky when I get through with him."
"Chug-a-rum!" said Grandfather Frog, and looked very hard at old Granny Fox. Granny winked the eye that was nearest to him. End of section 3.